Hello everyone and Jai Hind. Welcome to Gyanonymous School. I am delighted to welcome you all to our comprehensive criminology lecture series. So whether you are preparing for UGC NET or maybe studying criminology at university level or studying law, sociology, maybe if you are a student of police administration or maybe simply curious about crime and justice. So this series is designed to help you understand criminology from the ground up. Today's lecture is our first and perhaps the most important, because before we study criminals, policing or punishment or cybercrimes or terrorism, maybe before we study victimology, we must answer first one question, which is very simple yet it's a profound question. That is, what exactly is crime? What is crime exactly? So let's begin to the introduction of criminology. So criminology is the scientific study of crime, of criminals, about victims, criminal behavior and society's response to crime. The word criminology comes from two words. One is crimian, which is a Latin word, of course. It having the meaning of accusation or crime. There is logos on the back, which comes as from the Greek word. It means study or science. That is criminology. It literally means the scientific study of crime. But modern criminology goes much beyond the literal meaning of this word than simply identifying offenses. It seeks the answer of questions like, why do people commit crime? Who becomes a criminal? Why do some crimes increase while others decline? It answers questions like, how should society respond to crime? Can crime ever be completely eliminated? So these questions make criminology an interdisciplinary science. Now, coming to the question of why crime is difficult to define. At the first glance, defining crime appears very easy. Many people simply say that a crime is an act against the law. But in reality, it is much more complicated. Let's consider some examples, like consuming alcohol is illegal in places like Goa, but it's prohibited in Gujarat. It's even prohibited in Indian state of Bihar. Let's say marijuana, which is legal in Canada, but remains prohibited in many other countries. In another example, if we say that until 2018, consensual same-sex relationship between adults were criminalized in India under section 377 of Indian Penal Code. Okay? But today, after the landmark judgment of Supreme Court, such relationships are no longer crimes. They are legal. As this example tells us how something is important, like the premises, crime changes with time, crime changes with culture, and crime changes with law or with the framing of law. So crime changes over these premises, that is, over time, over culture, and over law. So therefore, there is no simple universal definition of crime that applies equally across all the societies in the world or across all historical periods. So that is crime. If we look crime from a legal construct, let's first understand crime from legal perspective. The legal approach is the simplest and most widely accepted definition of crime. According to legal perspective, crime is any act or omission prohibited by law and punishable by the state. There are four important components of this definition. Firstly, there must be a law. Without a law, there can be no crime. Secondly, the law must prohibit the specific conduct. Thirdly, the violation must attract punishment. There must be punishment for that particular violation. And fourthly, the punishment is imposed by the state through criminal justice system. There have to have a criminal justice system present in that particular society or state. So this idea is a reflection of famous Latin maxim, which is, I don't know if I would be able to pronounce it well. It's called nullum crimen sine lege. It actually means there is no crime without law. If there is no law, there is no crime. Similarly, there's another Latin maxim that is nulla pugna sine lege. It means there is no punishment without law. So to have a crime, there must need to be a law, a framed and well-documented law, and to have a punishment, there also must be a law. So these principles, they protect citizens from arbitrary punishments and ensure that only legally defined offenses are prosecuted. The legal perspective, it provides certainty and uniformity of criminal justice system. However, it has certain limitations. Not everything that is harmful is immediately illegal, or it shouldn't be assumed immediately illegal. Let's, for instance, spreading misinformation, maybe about environmental degradation or certain unethical corporate practices may cause immediate harm even before laws are enacted to regulate them. So therefore, law alone cannot fully explain crime. So crime, even though law is the primary tool which deals with the crime in a social construct or in administrative construct or in the construct of a state, law is not the alone that can fully explain crime. Now, what other things we need? What other things we actually also need to consider crime as a social construct? So now let's move beyond law and think crime as a social construct. Sociologists, they argue that crime is actually a product of society itself. French sociologist Émile Durkheim made one of the most important revolutionary statements in criminology. He actually argued that crime is very normal. at first it sounds like very shocking how crime can be normal, but dark crime didn't mean crime is desirable. He didn't mean crime is very desirable, okay? He just meant that crime is very normal in a social construct. He meant that every society, regardless of its wealth or its level of development, the society experiences crime. So no society has ever been completely free from crime. Crime exists because societies constantly change. Values evolve, norms evolve, and even laws evolve. So sometimes individuals change existing norms, and these challenges can eventually reshape the society. History offers many examples of that, like leaders who fought against colonial rule were treated as criminals, even treated as terrorists. Yet today many of them are celebrated as legendary freedom fighters and even as national heroes too. So these demonstrate that crime is deeply connected to social values and with political power also. Another important sociologist, Robert K. Merton, he explained that crime may arise when people are encouraged to pursue socially approved goals such as wealth and success, but lack of legitimate opportunities to achieve them, it leads to crime, or it leads to the possibilities of crime or delinquent behavior. So this mismatch between goals and opportunities, according to Martin, it creates strain, which may push some individuals towards criminal behavior. In the later of this course, we will be studying Martin's strain theory in detail. Actually, I have made a very concept video on strain theory, where there are both the strain theories, that is Robert Martin's strain theory and Robert Agnew's general strain theory, are discussed in detail. So you can go and please visit that video if you want to know more about the strain theory. So thus, from a sociological perspective, crime reflects that social inequality, cultural norms, economic conditions, and institutional structures, rather than merely individual choices. This all affect crime, the situation of crime, or the situation which leads an individual to be a criminal. If we now explore crime from psychological perspective, or crime as a psychological construct, psychologists focus on the individual mind rather than society. They ask questions like, why do two people raised in the same environment become or behave completely different when they grow up? Why does one become a law-abiding citizen while other become a habitual offender? Sigmund Freud, the famous psychologist, he proposed that human behavior is influenced by the interaction of three elements, that is id, ego, and superego. If impulses dominate and self-control is weak, and antisocial behavior may become more likely in that case. Another psychologist, Hans Eysenck, he emphasized the role of personality traits, suggesting that some individuals may be more prone to impulsive and risk-taking behavior. On the other hand, Albert Bandura, he introduced social learning theory, arguing that people learn behavior, including criminal behavior, through observation, imitation, and reinforcement, like another behavior or another skill like computer skill or driving. A child repeatedly exposed to violence at home may come to the view that aggression is very normal of day-to-day life. So in that way, he may be introduced to crime as a normal act in day-to-day life. So this doesn't mean that everyone exposed to violence becomes a criminal. Rather, psychological factors intersect with family, peers, education, and social environment. So all combined influence the criminal behavior or the possibility of someone going or developing delinquent behavior. Modern criminology therefore rejects simplistic explanation. Modern criminology needs or goes through a holistic approach. Crime cannot be explained by psychology alone, it cannot be explained by law alone, or it cannot be explained by social construct alone. It needs all the three or all the other factors integrated. So integrating all the three perspectives, what we are going to learn from it. The legal perspective tells us what is a crime. The sociological perspective, it explains why societies define certain acts as crime and how social conditions influence criminal behavior. The psychological perspective, it helps us understand why particular individuals engage in criminal acts while others do not. So each perspective answers a different question. Together they provide a more complete understanding of crime. This integrated approach forms the foundation of modern criminology and guides research in criminology, also in policing, in criminal justice administration and criminal justice policy, also on rehabilitation and crime prevention. So with this, we come to the conclusion of this lecture. In today's lecture, it has introduced us to the fundamental concept of crime and shown that it is much more than simply breaking the law. Crime is actually much more than simply breaking the law. Crime is simultaneously a legal category, a social phenomenon, and a psychological behavior. So understanding these three dimensions is essential before we move to the specifics of crime or the theories of criminal behavior, even if we move to victimology, policing, and punishment. In our next lecture, we will explore an equally important question like what is the difference between deviance and crime? Whether all deviant acts are crimes or all crimes can be termed as deviant act. So the answer may actually surprise you. Anyway, if you find this lecture helpful, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our Gyanonymous channel and share it to fellow students and aspirants. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next lecture. Till then, take care, bye bye, and Jai Hind.